Okay, so we've talked about rhythm notation and pitch notation, and we've talked about the staff. So now we're going to talk about meters and key signatures. So, meter is kind of how the time signature is interpreted. So the time signature is like this area here, is usually put in this area here. Like this right now doesn't have anything in it, so it would be in C because there's no sharps or flats. But if we wanted to be in the key of G major or E minor really, you could put a sharp on this F here and then a sharp on this F down here, and it would make the key into the key of G, and then the tonic would become G. The first note of the scale would be, that's what the tonic means. And then the dominant would be D instead of in the key of C. The dominant is actually G. So you can, that's where the key signature is at. And then the time signature goes right next to the key signature. And right now we don't have very much room for it. So we're going to come down here and we'll try another one. So you've got your treble clef, which I go like this for. Then you've got your bass clef on the F line. You've got your brace and your bracket. And then, so here we're going to pretend that this is, let's go with F, the key of F. So the key of F has all the B's are flat unless there's an accidental. So we'll write that into the key signature. And then for the time signature, let's say we're going to do 6/8. So you write 6/8 over here, and that means that there's going to be 6 beats, and that the 6 beats are going to be eighth notes. And eighth notes, just as a reminder, eighth notes look like this, or they look like this where they're connected. Yeah. So there's going to be 6 of those. Well, but this is actually, instead of calling this a simple, I don't even know what is 6. Whatever you call 6, numbers of them. You don't really run into it in piano, so I don't know that one, but simple, instead of a simple meter, this is actually going to be a compound meter because it divides into groups of 3. You have 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 are kind of how it divides down the measure, and then you'd have a measure line. But if you were in 3/4, you have 3 quarter notes, and that's actually triple. Instead of compound duple, that's actually simple triple, because the quarter notes divide in half instead of thirds. See how this, when you divide it in half down the line here for 6/8, you're in groups, 2 groups of 3. But 3 is actually going to be, if you went into eighth notes, 3/4, it would be probably written as 3 groups of 2. And that's the triple part. There's 3 groups. And then the simple part is that they just divide into 2 instead of 3. So 2/4 would be simple duple. 9/8 would actually be triple compound triple. And so you've got those interesting, meter's a very interesting thing. It's kind of how you divide things up, because you would think that 6/8 and 3/4 would mean basically the same thing, but they really mean very different things, because you've got with 6/8, it's going to be counted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and with 3/4, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Very different feel. Like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 would be 3/4, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 would be 6/8. Much of a different feel. And if you call them meters wise, even though 6/8 notes and 3/4 notes, looking at it mathematically, should be exactly the same thing, in meter, 6/8 is compound duple, and 3/4 would be simple triple, which it has like no common ground almost. So that's kind of how meter works. It's confusing because meter and time signature, most people think of time signature as meter, and they're not necessarily the same thing. They are related to each other. Anyway, so you've got meter there for rhythmic notation. Key signature, we talked about key signatures, though. Oh, for key signatures, we were talking about briefly like how to write them. You can't just throw in flats, you know, if you want to flat all of your Fs, for instance. You can't just put in F flat in the key signature and only flat your F. There's a certain order of sharps and flats. So like if you got a flat in the key signature whatsoever, you're going to have B flat at least. And then on top of that, your second flat is E flat. And then your third flat is A flat. But you're not going to have A flat if you don't have B flat and E flat in the key signature because they add them on. It's kind of like building. You start with your B flat, then they add on the E flat, then the A flat, then I think it's the D flat after that or something like that. And you do that through the circle of fifths. So for flats, you actually go down fifths from C, the key with neither sharps nor flats in the key signature. You start with C. See if you can see this. You've got C. There we go. And then for F, you go down a fifth, which is 7 half steps if we're being technical, because you could do a diminished fifth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, F. So the key of F has a B flat in it. And then the key of, now we need to go down 7 half steps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 to get to your next key, which is the key of B flat, which adds E flat. And so notice you have B flat in that one, but you've got E flat as well now. And then if you go down a fifth from there, you're on E flat, which is going to have E flat, A flat, which is the new one, and then B flat. Now the flat ones are kind of fun because you can just look at the last one and you know which one it's going to add. So in the key of B flat, once you get to B flat, in the key of B flat, you know that the last key, the key of F, added B flat. And then in the key of E, you know that the last key, the key of B flat, added an E flat. So you can like go to the next key to figure out what the new flat is going to be. It's crazy. And then for sharps, you go up fifths from C. So you've got C, which has 0. And then you go G is up a fifth, or 7 half steps. Then up another 7 half steps is your D, which is 2 sharps. And then up from D, you've got A. And then up from A, you've got E, which has 4. And then up from E, you get B, which has 5. And honestly, F sharp has 6, even though you think there would only be 5 because there's only 5 black notes. They actually sharp. You've got F, G sharp, A sharp, B, C sharp, D, E sharp, C. You would think that would be F, but it's not, it's E sharp. And then F sharp, because you can only have one note name for each of the notes in the key. So you can't have F and then F sharp. It has to be E sharp and then F. It's weird, but that's the way it is. And then C sharp has 7 actually because it sharps E. And then it also sharps B, which is technically C, but it's sharp. On the piece of paper, it will look like B sharp, and on the piano it will look like C. And then C sharp. And the whole step half step pattern for a scale, which we might as well talk about now. Whole step half step pattern for a major scale. Whole step, half step. Whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. And I learned it all as 2 whole steps, half step, 3 whole steps, half step. But you can also think of it as 2 tritones with a whole step connecting them, where you've got 2 whole steps, 1 half step, and then you skip a whole step, and you've got 2 whole steps and a half step. And then your tritone, you actually know the next 4 notes of your next scale up. because G and C share these 4 notes. Fascinating, the stuff that they have on here. And then the other thing, the other pattern in the circle of fifths that you've got is your pattern that is the sharps and flats themselves, which actually also go by fifths. So your first sharp is going to be F sharp, even though it's the key of G. The first fifth is F sharp. Right there, F sharp. And then you've got C sharp is the next one, which is up a fifth or 7 half steps. And then you go up a fifth again, and you're on G sharp. And then up a fifth again, and you're on E sharp. And up a fifth again, and you add A sharp, and so forth. And then same thing with the flats the way down. And then you figure out your minor scale. The relative minor is a minor third below each of your relative majors. And it has the same key signature. Unless you do it harmonic, which you raise the half step. Anyway, it gets complicated from there because you've got 3 forms of minors: your harmonic, your melodic, and your natural minor. The natural minor ones are the ones that are identical to your major scale, except that they just start on a different note. And so then the tonic is in a different place. And it makes it sound different because you started on a different note. But really, it's sharing all of the same 7 notes. Harmonic, the 7th is raised. Melodic, the 6th and 7th are raised on the way up. And then it turns natural on the way down. Anyway, so there's a lot of different things with the circle of fifths patterns that you can find. And then you can double and recheck, triple check, quadruple check yourself, because on the majors and minors, because the minors go in fifths too. Once you start an A minor, then you go up a fifth, and E minor has 1 sharp, just like G does. So anyway, they have a lot of, and I think it's actually, I may have said relative fifths earlier. I meant parallel, relative majors and minors. I meant parallel. The relative ones are like A major and A minor that have the same name. So anyway, there's a lot of patterns in the circle of fifths, and you can use that for doing key changes and modulations and all of that, because some are more closely connected than the other ones. Some you can almost play a note and then play another note and you're in a new key, because you can use the dominant of one key to change it into the tonic, and then you're immediately in another key, versus in other keys that are not related to each other at all. You have to actually go to some extreme lengths to get into the key from one, and sometimes you might even have to go through other keys to even make it sound listenable. So anyway, there's some patterns on the key signature, rhythmic and pitch notation, and meter, but mostly on key signature and meter.